Hello, this is Dr. Lee Hildebrand with my latest video, and today I want to address what I'm finding to be a challenging area for many people, and that is navigating the challenges of your extended family. Now, when we think about family, there are many sayings that address this, including the old saying that blood is thicker than water. This is an old English proverb, and I think it even came from the 12th century in Germany. And there's only one problem with this, that yes, blood is thicker, but sometimes there are forces that cause coagulations in the blood. And in other situations, water can flow more freely. That is, in relationships that you pick and choose. So that old saying is absolutely correct in terms of trying to solidify that family can be very important. And simultaneously, if the implication of that saying is that you can always rely on family more steadily or readily than you can some other people, many would say that just depends on the family. That depends on your particular situation and the people that are involved. For some of us, we have storybook expectations about what family means, not only in an immediate family, but in terms of an extended family, and people being there for one another and being supportive, being understanding, these kinds of things. And in many families, or there are some families where this is certainly the case. Not across the board with every single person, but there's a culture that is like that. In addition to that, in every single family, there are dynamics and there are nuances, and in every single family, there are aspects of dysfunction, or aspects and ways that the family doesn't do everything perfectly. So it's important as we think about our own families, in your situation in particular, to have realistic expectations, to not think or assume that if there are challenges in relating to your family members, your extended family members, that it's a bad family, and or the other conclusion to think somehow you're this terrible person, there must be something wrong with you because our family just can't seem to get along. There are many challenges that face families, and it's important not to personalize that to yourself. Now, in terms of fostering good family relationships, just like in any arena in life, it's important to be intentional. In other words, if you're thinking about those relationships and you want to bring about some further closeness, you need to invest time. You need to think about your planning. Do you take vacations together? Do you spend certain holidays together? What are the kinds of things in your family that you can be intentional about in your planning that can be inducive or conducive to fostering further connection in your family? Now, some families do this naturally. In other situations, there are certain people in a family that take more initiative and that initiate with family members and maybe even show leadership or they're facilitators in bringing people together. So if you're one of those people, it can be helpful and important to use those skills to bring about these kinds of connections. If you're not one of these people, if you do have some personalities in your family that tend to do that, Aunt Sally always tends to bring everybody together, for example, then it's important to appreciate the role that person is playing, especially if your family are people that you want to continue to connect with or you want to build further and closer relationships with. Now, there can be wrinkles in this in terms of connecting and building relationships with your family, and that can be sometimes there are EGR people in families. And an EGR person is extra grace required. These are people that can seem difficult for you to relate to. They might tend to focus a little bit more on themselves and their own needs versus thinking about the bigger picture. In terms of if you're getting together, They might not be people that think about, hey, what's going to be in the common welfare for the overall group. They might be thinking more about what's going to be best for them or best for their immediate family in terms of the logistics of things. And in some cases, you can have really severe personality situations that make it very difficult to relate to certain family members. For instance, if you have a family member that leans toward the narcissistic side of things, that they are somebody that is thinking about themselves way more than others, that needs to be right a lot of the time, that will never admit that they're wrong, that in any situation, conversation, etc., that they're going to be looking to drawing attentional supply or a supply of attention to themselves through any means. And they may try to represent or compliment others close to them, such as their spouse, in front of others in order to look like that great guy or that great gal. But the intention behind that for a true narcissist is to try to make themselves look good so they get more attention. Wow, aren't you a great husband? Aren't you a great wife? You do things so perfectly. That's really where the intentions are. So to ferret out and know if you have a true narcissist on your hands within your family, you will be able to tell if you step back and you look at all of their actions. If you can point and look at a high percentage of their actions consistently coming back to some kind of focus, attention, aggrandizement of themselves, then it is more than likely that you have a true narcissistic personality on your hands. Now, these can be difficult to deal with. One thing is definitely clear. It's pretty hard to have a really good relationship with a narcissist unless you're you're a really good people pleaser. If you're a people pleaser and you enjoy giving attention to the narcissist and you're going to be a source of supply of attention, aggrandizement, asking them questions about their lives, drawing them out, they're going to love you in terms of that. Now, they're not going to necessarily ask you questions about your life. They're not going to necessarily celebrate your successes. They're not going to do those things for you. But if you're willing to do those things for them, they will receive that readily. Now, in regard to personality characteristics, and I just talked a little bit about narcissism there, but definitely there are many other. There can be mental health challenges that family members have. You may have family members that are a bit more on the anxious side or on the depressive side. Some family members may be very introverted and not as talkative. Other family members may be the life of the party and they're outgoing all the time. And depending on your own personality, either of those may be annoying or not, or you may really like it. So it's important to have compassion about our family members, about their characteristics, to be able to step back and recognize the strengths in their personalities, and then also have compassion and understand their limitations. You may have family members sometimes that are really disorganized. They may struggle a little bit with managing, for instance, ADHD. So they may be late sometimes to things. They may be having difficulties, being organized if they're planning situations. It's important to have understanding with that and be able to see that. And then also it's important to be able to have compassion as it relates to yourself. The great thing about families is there's nobody in a family that's perfect, and that includes you and me. So in that spirit, it's important also for us to be compassionate about some of the challenges that we have and to be honest about our own shortcomings. We all have limitations to who we are and what we're bringing to our family. So it's healthy to be able to step back and have some understanding with that and recognize that other people put up with aspects of who we are as well. Now, the clear dividing line here too is if there's certain characteristics that you want to have compassion for and they're a little difficult, those are things that you can work with and that people can work with you. However, if there are abrasive, overarching characteristics, including the narcissism example that I gave, those are things that if you're bringing to the table may be deal breakers for other family members. And simultaneously, if you have certain family members that are bringing those kind of characteristics, whether it be, that they're super aggressive and they get angry with everybody, or whether or not they're more narcissistic and it's all about them, or they're just very self-centered, where they just want what they want. You're secondary. These are situations where it can become kind of toxic, and you may decide that you're going to limit your exposure to that particular family member, or you might decide altogether that you're going to walk away, that the benefits of the relationship are so far outweighed by the negatives that you decide that it is not healthy for you to be in that relationship or to participate with that, and you may need to decide to walk away. Now, in relation to yourself, it's also important in regard to being honest about some of your own shortcomings, that if you do make a mistake in the context of family, that you're willing to own up to it, that you're willing to make amends, that you're willing to go to somebody and say, in such and such situation, when I did such and such, I was wrong in that situation, or I could have done that better. Would you please forgive me? So it takes humility to be a great family member with other family members, and we need that from one to another. In addition to that, it's important to set boundaries. It's important to set boundaries within families. There may be certain family members that have some of these characteristics, or you've had some history with them that requires you to limit your exposure. You might even try to look at a situation where maybe there's one overnight, but it's not for days and days. It's not spending a week together on vacation, where you recognize that you need to put some of those limits in to avoid conflicts and hassles and situations that can be preventable if you set some boundaries and some limits. You also might want to set some boundaries in regard to finances. There are certain family members that will seek to borrow money potentially a lot, and that can become exploitive over time. So you may need to set some boundaries in regard to that. You might need to set some boundaries in regard to them being in your space. There may be some family members that invite themselves over all the time, or just show up without giving you any kind of warning. And these are areas where you might decide you need to set some boundaries. Another key here is it's important not to take all the responsibility for making family relationships work. If you're the type of person where you like things to be positive, you want it to move in that direction, you may extend some effort in that regard. However, just because you or maybe a couple family members want to bring about that result, that does not mean that you can accomplish that across the board within the family. And it's important not to take that all upon yourself if it's not successful. It's important not to feel like we're the rescuer or we're the hero in our family that's going to make everything work or make everybody get along. This can get people into trouble. It can wear them out because they just spend their bandwidth on this and feel like at a certain point they're spinning their wheels. It can also lead to unnecessary conflict, maybe with their spouse, who sees this kind of action and feels like there needs to be some limits to that. So another aspect of these kinds of relationships is to recognize that it's important to live with the fact that some of your family members are potentially not going to like you. They may not like something about your personality. There may be jealousies that play a part of that. They might be jealous of how much money you make. They might be jealous of certain degrees that you've obtained or certain aspects of life. They might be jealous of your friendships. They might be jealous of your houses and cars. They might be jealous of some other kind of social status that you've attained. They might be jealous of how you look or how you take care of yourself. There's all kinds of arenas that jealousy can develop. So it's important to be aware of that And it's important for each of us not to be envious of other family members. To be a good family member, it's important to celebrate and really truly rejoice with the successes that your siblings or your children or your parents, that other family members accomplish. To be able to really share in that, to really be able to feel that and support them in that. That is a definition of a good family member. Not to envy them, not to be jealous, or not to try to take away attention from things that they've done positively. And this is hearkening back to the narcissist, is something the narcissist will do, is they're going to want all the attention. If they buy a new car, they're going to talk about the whole deal in the process and be so proud of it and talk about how much money they saved. But if you roll up in a car, maybe you got a new car, you got something that you're really excited about, they're not going to say anything. That's a threat to them. That's a threat to them getting attention. And so they're going to downplay that, and they're not going to ask you any questions about it. You could drive up in a Lamborghini and park it in front of their house, and they won't even comment on it. So to be a good family member, you really do want to show other family members that you're not there to compete with them, but you're there to celebrate with them. You're there to share in the victories that they have as well. And speaking of this, certain family members not liking you, it reminds me, I was in a home recently and I saw this sign, and it said basically, "You don't like me?" ? That's a shame. I'll need to take a few minutes to recover from this tragedy. I thought that was classic, and I think the main message there is to say, hey, not everybody's going to like us. Not everybody's going to think that we're the best family member or the person that they want to hang out all the time. It's important not to take that personally. Just recognize that there are differences with people, and to try to work with that the best we can, and not personalize that and get too down on ourselves or too down on other people if they're not quite as interested in connecting with us as other family members are. So another key, and my final point today in terms of navigating the challenges of extended family, is to foster relationships that you want to be a part of. And I want to take this across the board, even beyond family. In your life, it's important to think about what are those criterion that are very important to you in relationships that you want to spend time on, that you want to invest your attention in, and to focus on those relationships. Now, in the context of family, that doesn't mean that you're going to ignore family members or you're going to cut off all relations with family members that you just don't jive with as much. There's some benefits and some love involved in connecting with family members, that aren't your favorite people per se. But simultaneously, it's important for you not to invest all your time in people that don't have your best interests in mind. We don't want to do the opposite of this and spend years and years trying to hang out with and please family members that, quite frankly, don't treat us that well, may not really celebrate us, may not give due regard in situations. But along those lines, look at fostering relationships in your life that you want to be a part of. You might not get to choose your family, but you do get to choose how often, when, and how you relate to your family. And quite frankly, whether or not you're going to continue to relate to them. And then, of course, you get to choose your other associations for the most part, those people that you really want to invest your free time with, outside of work and your other kinds of obligations. So just want to encourage you to recognize, first of all, families are not perfect. Have realistic expectations in your relationships with family members. Be intentional. Watch out for narcissists. Have compassion with family members that have some challenges and characteristics just as you do. You're not perfect. Be honest about your own shortcomings. Make amends with other family members when you step out of line or you feel like you make a mistake. Set boundaries with other family members as you need to, as a source of healthiness and protection. And don't take all the responsibility for making your family great. It's a group responsibility. And learn to live with the fact that some people are just not going to like you. And to close, lastly, foster relationships that you want to be a part of. The beautiful thing about all this is you get to choose how you invest your time and attention. Thanks so much for tuning into my video today. I hope you found this helpful. Please feel free to like the video if you did and share it with anybody that you feel like could benefit from this. And also subscribe to my channel if you'd like to get more videos that I do in regard to helping not only for you to survive in life, but to thrive in life in regard to mental health themes and just overall health themes. So wishing you the best. Thanks for tuning in.